this little screw in here. So I've got it at about 1 or 2 o'clock star slot on it, and you just turn it. Where is it? There we go. Turn it till it's at about you only get about 1/6 of a turn at a time. This one's really tight. Ugh. Okay. Well, I'm going to stop it here either way, and I'm going to see if I can make my tool, and then I'll get back. Okay. So here's the little tool I made. It's about 1 millimeter on the end. Or, I'm sorry, 3 millimeters on the end. About a 4 millimeter back. Just a little L thing so it can drop down into that star wheel and then turn, in theory. Unfortunately, it didn't completely work. It's just a piece of sheet metal, about 20 thousandths thick, but that screw is on there tight. So I ended up using a normal standard screwdriver and getting it in there and getting a good bite on it, and then finally I got it to crack loose. But I think I'm still going to use this because it is quicker and I think a little nicer on the screw than slipping with a screwdriver and kind of torquing it at a weird angle. All right, I'm going to pause again and get this thing out and get back to you. Okay, so I got it out a pretty fair amount. It's into the cassette chamber, and I'm going to see if I can slide it apart. The instructions I'm using say you kind of unscrew it and then test it and unscrew it and test it until you've got it out enough that you can slide the cover off like that. And what you're going for is, he describes it as the copper winding arm, which is this thing right there. And it's kind of a rack running across the camera. And you'll see on the inside it interacts with some other gears, but it's kind of spring-loaded on a catch inside here. So what you do is you just open it up a little bit and then get a screwdriver. If you have it far enough, you can use your finger, but you just push down on it. So it goes down into the case and unhooks. There we go. From that latch inside. And then this end cover will come right off. And this is aluminum. It's pretty nice, but it's still shockingly, again, I can't imagine how they did this in the 30s. But keep it somewhere safe, because it seems fairly thin to me. So you don't want to drop it and have somebody step on it, or drop it on something hard and bend it. All right, so we've got that apart. And here we can see these are the two shutter blade springs and the winding arm. And that's about it so far. Here's the other end of that weird star screw. So it's actually kind of the back end of a more normal screw. There's just no other way to get to it. So that's how they did it. Okay, so next step, we look at this end cap, and we're looking at this screw right here. And that comes out, and then the top cover will come off. Let's use that 2 millimeter, it's a better size. So I'm using that same bit that I was using to get those black ones out of the end. Same thing, slotted screw. Very thin slots on these. So I'm going to push down. Nope. There's a thinner one. Okay. Okay, get a good fit on your screw. There we go. And unscrew it. Now this one is the same. I guess I was mistaken earlier. It is the same as the two black ones that came out of the side. But to be safe, you want to put everything back the way it came. But the ones that came out the side do have black paint on them, so it's kind of easy to tell them apart. Okay, so when you take that off, this end's going to spring up a little bit. And so with that screw out, kind of lift up a little bit and wiggle it, and it slides off the far end. It's got a bent. This hook here is part of the top plate, and it's just bent over like an ear, and it hooks onto right there on the main body of the camera. So it slides on and pushes down, and that screw holds it. It's a bit milled solid aluminum plate. Your shutter button is also slipped in here. Nothing holding it in, so when you do take it apart, be aware of it might escape. What else? Nothing too amazing up here. The shutter speed knob is attached to this, and your film counter / focusing knob is still in the main body. That is the biggest wrestling match of working on one of these cameras. Getting it out, like most things, it'll come right out, but getting it back in the right place is, after you do it once or twice, then it's not so bad, but getting it that first time, oh man. Okay. Hang on, reading instructions. Okay, next is we're going to take off these two screws that hold the back cover on. Same story, 2 millimeter thin, slotted. Look very, very similar to the other screws. There we go. So this is going to have a small spring, flat spring under it. This is a stamped piece of probably stainless. And it holds in, let's get the tweezers out here. This, which is your pressure plate for your film. It's riveted, a little piece of blued spring steel. There's no top or bottom on it. It just drops in. There's no magic to it. And then your viewfinder over here has a tiny little lens on the top that's just dropped in with a little steel frame. And the way it goes back in, you can remember either the convex side goes into the camera, or the little steel frame, the ears are bent, and the bend goes downwards, so it pushes up against this stainless plate, so that it keeps tension on it that way. I'm going to put that down on a plastic tray. That is actually, it's an actual lens. It's not just a piece of plastic or just a dust cover, so you want to keep it from getting scratched. The viewfinder in these things are supposed to be kind of a nightmare, so I didn't have any problems with mine, so I didn't even touch them. But you can, if you follow up these instructions, he'll tell you how to take them out. But he's pretty much recommends and begs, if there's no problem with it, don't mess with it. Same thing with this clockwork mechanism. I've taken apart some large format shutters, we're back to this thing. I've been having problems with memory cards. Okay, so we've got the end cover off and the back cover off. And you can see everything going on in this mess. Wonder, whatever you want to call it. And so you've still got this dangling off here off that wire that's been rumored. There's the end of the wire right there at that corner. Where's my pointer? There we go. Right there. It's the copper wire feeding the resistor information to the light meter. And you got your springs. I'm gonna try to slide those back in so they're not under so much tension. Okay. So then, to get the front faceplate off, I'm pretty sure. Viewfinder, optics. Do not clean the viewfinder. Shutters. Okay. There is right here at the top corner of the lens information and by the knurled filter slider, there's another little black set screw. The same thing, the 1mm standard. Gently unscrewing it. I guess it's not a set screw, it's a tiny countersunk flathead. And I know that's the only one of those. So he goes in the bucket. And with that off, this should just lift right off. Okay, so what we got going on inside, there's your knurled filter slider. All right. And this is kind of your lens cover, which I believe is just a flat piece of glass. I think it's a UV filter, but it's not really a lens. So you still don't want to mess it up, but that's generally, like mine's got a fingerprint on it. Looks like it has water smears. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's kind of crimped in there. Don't really need to take it out, I would imagine, unless it's cracked, but you could use it at this point, a lens cloth, to clean it up, because the original manual says that a fingerprint on here will just cause all kinds of grief, out of focus photos and anything terrible. Everything on these things has to be super clean because everything is so small that any little crumb of anything will be blown out to way out of proportion. Okay, so you can see a little more of this shutter mechanism going on. There's the springs. This copper colored plate here is the crimped housing that holds the shutter blades. Here's your filters. They're just attached to a single plate with a stud on it that interacts with that cover we just took off. And right here are two, kind of funny colored on this. This is electrical contacts that tell the light meter when the neutral density filter is engaged. And what happens is there's a brass plate here. When it slides across to that position, it connects, where are we?